Good evening. Welcome to the October 2nd, 2013 Board of Education meeting. We were in executive session starting at 6 o'clock, talking about contractual and personnel matters. At this time, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I see we have quite a few participation in government students tonight. Welcome. As part of your requirement, you have to stay until 9 o'clock. If the meeting goes beyond 9, we'll take a break at 9, and you can come up and sign out. Some of you may need to have a board member sign your sheet, and also there'll be sign-out sheets at the end. We'll do introductions.
Lynn Lenhart.
Joanne Cunningham.
Kate Navarro. Jody Monroe.
Tom Douglas.
Matt Downey.
Michael Cooper.
Diane Stever.
Charmaine Regisinger.
Item number 1, approval of the minutes of the September 2013 board meeting. It should say board meeting, not special board meeting.
So moved.
That's a
Second.
first, that's a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries. Item number 3, Student Senate report.
My name is Anna Kleinberg, and I'm the Vice President of Student Senate. I'm here to update everybody on a couple of the things that Shannon touched upon last meeting, as well as introduce a few new ideas that we've been working on. We decided against doing a powder puff due to the time. Homecoming became difficult. We thought maybe doing the senior night, but it was all very rushed, and it wouldn't have been a good school spirit. It wasn't the kind of thing we ended up wanting, so we decided against it, but we have a lot more in plan. Right now, our biggest focus is dodgeball. It's one of our largest fundraisers, the Fall Dodgeball Tournament. It's a huge source of school spirit. We like to do like a little spirit week, and really everyone loves coming in after school to watch the competition, and the tournament is a lot of fun. A big thing we just did was finish freshman elections, so we have 6 new Senate members. It's very exciting. We are working on organizing selling pizza after school on Fridays, which was a big fundraiser for us last year. It really helped our treasurer out quite a bit. It's helpful for students who can't go home before practices and stuff like that, and it's just a nice thing that we can offer. Our next big thing is going to be Mr. Bethlehem, the very always fun little fundraiser and school spirit thing as well. So we have a lot of fundraisers to help support Bethlehem's clubs, and school spirit events planned as well. I'm working on that.
Great, thank you. When do you plan on having the dodgeball tournament?
Dodgeball is going to be the first week of November, so it's a Monday through Friday, each day after school. So now we're working on getting signups in. Setting up a bracket is going to happen soon. So.
Good, thank you.
I have a
Any
question.
questions?
Where are you going to be selling the pizza?
We sell the pizza out in the hallway, like right in this hallway,
Okay.
after school on
And-
some Fridays.
And what time does the cafeteria close down? Weren't they staying open?
7th period.
20.
Okay, so, okay, I should ask
Yeah.
you, okay. Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Anna?
What's Mr. Bethlehem?
Mr. Bethlehem
nephew
is
won
this
last year.
adorable little pageant but for male participants. So there's obviously a talent portion, there's a little speech portion, and it's basically like a little male pageant. It's really fun. It was very popular.
And when will that be held?
We're thinking, we're trying to pick some time that works out with sports games, so we're still sort of looking at a date, but we're thinking a winter date to something to come after dodgeball.
Are you entering, Matt?
No.
No, Lynn is.
Thank you very
you.
much. Next, the superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Downey and fellow members of the board.
It is my privilege this evening to offer some of the many happenings here at Bethlehem Central. First and foremost, I'd like to extend my congratulations to the entire faculty and staff at Ellesmere Elementary School for being named a Blue Ribbon School by the United States Department of Education. Although they're closed, we are open. So congratulations. I know we're going to have a further First of all, I want everybody to know that last Friday we hosted a breakfast for the faculty and staff at Ellesmere Elementary for their accomplishment. I appreciate those board members that were able to attend on such short notice as we made the announcement. This is certainly a great honor and an accomplishment for the school as well as the entire district and its community. I know the staff really appreciated the recognition and the great time that was had on that entire day, and it was also a great way to kick off our homecoming weekend. Additionally, I'd like the board to know that Mr. Timothy Kramer, the Executive Director of the New York State School Boards Association, has sent his organization's congratulations to our district on this national honor, and it's a great accomplishment for the region as well. The district will receive the award in late November, providing the government remains open, and we will make a formal presentation to the board and community at that time, which I expect it will be the November 20th board meeting. Therefore, in the meantime, I'm sure you all join me in, again, commending the staff at Ellesmere for their hard work and dedication. This, however, is not the only award that our district has recently received. Recently, our transportation director, and if I could have him stand, I know he's in the back corner, Mr. Eric Karam was nominated for the School Bus Fleet Administrator of the Year Award. And guess what? He won. The National Administrator of the Year Award. This award for Al's tireless effort to Bethlehem Central and the students that his whole entire department serves will be presented at the National Association of Pupil Transportation Summit to be held in Grand Rapids, Michigan later this month. The award dinner honoring his accomplishment will be Sunday, October 20th. He will also be featured in an upcoming issue of the School Bus Fleet magazine, so we all look forward to reading that. And this is also really a tremendous and wonderful honor for Al and the recognition for his expertise and leadership in the transportation field. We will be formally announcing this to the Transportation Department tomorrow, so at 9:30, if board members are available, we wanted to roll this out to his entire staff because I know when Al was informed of this award, the first thing he gave credit to as the gentleman that he is his entire staff for making Bethlehem so strong. So congratulations, Al, on this great accomplishment, and to your entire staff for such a great job. If that's not enough to make the district shine, well, we'd also like you to know that Megan McCabe, a social studies teacher at the middle school, was nominated through the Tawacenta chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution to be considered the state's outstanding teacher of American history. This chapter is one of 135 chapters who submitted nominations across the state, and guess what happened? I think you all know. She was selected as the New York State Outstanding Teacher of American History by the Daughters of the American Revolution. Megan headed to Syracuse last week for the awards banquet, and she will now be in the running for the Daughters of American Revolution National History Teacher of the Year Award. This is a great accomplishment for Megan, and we'll bring her out to a future board meeting, but we wanted to make this announcement as we put it out on the web and congratulate her on this accomplishment, and also wish her the best in the national selection process. So thank you very much, Megan. I know the board is very proud of you as well as the rest of the district. Tonight, we also have a very special presentation to the board. At this time, I'd like to invite Mrs. Grace Petreska up to present to the board an honorary plaque for the Clarksville Elementary School. Grace?
Oh, hernia.
Thank you, Dr. Douglas. I thought a little background regarding the plaque would be good to say. Conversation began last fall when the Clarksville Elementary School letters had been removed from the building and replaced with the Albany County Sheriff's sign. Acting on the concern that a long-term or permanent resident would eventually erase the knowledge or memory of the building's community history and all the important and wonderful things that took place there, the idea of a memorial plaque was born. After speaking with Dr. Douglas and obtaining the board's approval to purchase and mount a plaque, a fund drive was organized. An overwhelming positive response made possible the upgraded plaque and a donation to the Dorothy McDonald Memorial Scholarship Fund. Therefore, I am privileged to be here as the representative of the Friends of Clarksville School in presenting this plaque, which we hope will be a lasting memorial to all those who have been part of its history. The plaque reads, Clarksville Elementary School, 1948 to 2011, dedicated to the students who learned here and the teachers, administrators, and support staff who provided the rich learning experience of this school. Thank you.
Can I take that back?
We do. Rachel and Michaela are here, Matt. Rachel and Michaela.
Or any other staff members back there?
Mr. K was a principal. This is Reagan helped out. Come on, Tom, you not working out?
Oh, that are like 600 pounds. Like trying to squish it over together.
Is it more? Do you have another one, Matt?
Okay, let's take a couple of these. Here we go, 1, 2, 3, and one more right after this. Here we go. Okay, and very good.
You're trying to say it's just, it's gonna get worse. I agree.
Obviously, thank you, Grace, as well, for taking care of that and making such a donation, as well as everyone here that was able to come out to be part of the Clarksville family and overall a part of the BC family. We really strive to make sure everybody is successful in every endeavor here in Bethlehem Central, and this just shows that pride, so thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, last night was a great night for the district in regards to parent engagement regarding the Regents reform agenda. The district hosted a community Common Core and APPR discussion night for the community. I'm proud to report that we had over 200 parents and community members join us for the discussion. I'd like to thank everybody involved in last night's event for their time and expertise in this area and also for making it very relevant to our community. I heard from many in the attendance that this was a great evening and that they really looked to learn more about the Common Core advancement from our website as well as from any future discussions that they have. It really does take a whole village to be successful with this reform movement. There are many events that take place both in and out of the schools throughout the year. These events occur only with the support and dedication of our staff. And parents to make sure that we have the best education program possible. Recently, our students are exploring outdoor education at elementary levels by visiting for 3 days to Nature's Classroom in Beckett, Massachusetts. Eagle Elementary visited on September 25th through the 27th, and I know coming up in the next couple of weeks, both, I think, Glenmont and Hammergrell will be attending as well. So I'm going to try to get out to them to make sure I see a little bit of each part of our educational program. We've heard that this trip was very successful on Eagle side, and I know it will be also just as successful with Hammergrell and Glenmont. In addition, ladies and gentlemen, the lab school also uses this format for educational exploration in the outdoor setting to enhance their learning structure and team dynamics of the students in the program. I had the fortunate opportunity to visit this fine program over the past month at Camp Chinjacook, I get that name, in Warren County. The drive was beautiful. The day was filled with educational work sessions and group interactions that build many strong ties across each of the grade levels in the lab school, as well as among the parents, students, and staff members of the school. I was very impressed with the dedication of those involved with making this program within the lab school work and how they tirelessly give of their time and energies to the kid and as well as the entire program. As I close out my comments this evening, I'd like to take time to thank everyone for such a great homecoming celebration this past week, and especially like to commend the Bethlehem Central Community Foundation for all of their hard work with the Jamboree just before last week's game. This event is certainly appreciated by all in the BEC community and provides great support to our students and teachers through scholarship and grant opportunities. I would also like to remind the community that on December 4th, Assemblywoman Patricia Fahey will be visiting our Board of Education meeting. We will also be trying to set up a meet and greet forum for our legislator prior to the board meeting at the high school, most likely in the main lobby area. We have also extended a special invitation to Senator Breslin as well in hopes that his schedule can accommodate this date and we can honor our special guests for their support and dedication to education across the state, but especially here in Bethlehem. I know I could probably continue on and on. However, I will finish by saying that these are wonderful examples of how every day we give our best here in Bethlehem for the students and community we serve. Thank you so much, and this concludes my superintendent's report for October.
Anyone have any questions for Dr. Douglas? Thank you. Next up is the Board of Education report. At this point, does anyone have anything to speak of, anything that they attended since the last meeting, or? No.
I just wanted to echo Dr. Douglas's comments to Ellesmere for a very well-deserved recognition. A number of the board members were able to come to the breakfast the other morning, and in this day and age where educators are oftentimes demonized, it's nice that we can celebrate their excellence. And I want to applaud everybody who's gotten recognitions. And a number of us were also able to be at the Common Core meeting last night, which was, I thought, very well organized and did a nice job of explaining a very complicated learning matrix to the parents. And I hope that it will continue as a dialogue in the community. This isn't a one-stop learning process for parents or for educators, and it's going to be a continually evolving process. But I thought it was a good first step in helping to get the parents to understand all these changes that are going on in our educational program.
Related to that, and of course, many of our staff are here that were here last night and explained, and of course, Jody Monroe really did a great job, and I think parents really appreciated that. I just want to add to that, too, that the New York State Educational Conference Board came out with a press release, and I'll mention that the conference board, it consists of many partners in education. They're the Superintendent Association, Administrators Association, of course, School Board Association, NYSET, business officials, Council of Big Five school districts, or the 5 cities in the state, and whoever, I guess that was it. I think there were about six organizations, but often not totally in agreement about a lot of different issues. But they did issue a press release on the Common Core called Common Ground on the Common Core, and they The 5-point plan that they issued includes things like institute a statewide campaign to build understanding and support for the importance of the Common Core learning standards. Number 2, invest in ongoing professional development to implement the Common Core. 3, ensure adequate state and federal funding to give all classroom teachers the tools, instructional materials, and technology they need to help all students meet the standards, including extra help for students most at risk of falling short of the standards. Number 4, reassess the state's approach to student testing and address the most pressing concerns that parents and educators have expressed about testing. And then number 5, establish an ongoing process for engaging key stakeholders in reviewing and refining implementation of the Common Core. I think this is great, because I think, people have been talking about this from all different angles and getting frustrated and whatever, and if there's some sort of common ground that everybody can approach legislators and maybe make some changes in the future, or at least improve what we are doing. I think everybody in general now is in support of the Common Core learning standards, but it's everything else that goes with it has frustrated a lot of people, especially the testing and certainly APPR. So I think, I think it's great that all these groups were able to work hard and come up with something in agreement. So I just wanted to mention that. And the homecoming, which I could not attend, I was at a regional board meeting all last weekend, so I missed that, but from emails I received from the Bethlehem Central Community Foundation, they felt it was very successful in the aspects of the homecoming that they were sponsoring. And certainly the money that they raise goes for very good purposes. There are a lot of teacher grants that were given this year as a result of money earned last year, so hopefully they'll be able to give out more grants this year. And if anybody wants to make a contribution, it's the Bethlehem Central Community Foundation. Make your checks payable too. I'm sure they'll appreciate it. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Joanne.
I also want to give lots of kudos to Jody and the district, Tom, for holding the Common Core meeting. I couldn't go to it, but I will say the Facebook posts today were burning up, mostly with, I would say, a couple of themes. One was very complimentary to the district for having an education program that was geared toward parents and aiming to really enlighten parents as to what exactly Common Core means and kind of demystifying it. So I think that was a great thing to do. I think the other theme, and it kind of reflects number 4 on your list, Lynn, which relates to the implementation of Common Core. I think some of the things that were kind of burning up the web in links to articles and op-ed columns and other sort of commentary related to Common Core from a parent perspective were things like the implementation and the fact that the district is really held to New York State's standard of how rigidly or and maybe these aren't the right characterizations, how aggressively it's being implemented and kind of the unintended consequences of that. And I think that's something that I'm glad is being paid attention to, because I think that kind of maybe is one of the root issues that is causing a lot of angst, not necessarily the goal of it, which is to improve achievement and really excellence at the academic level, but more the growing pains of the initial phase of it and the focus on testing. And I think that some of the things that I read today just nationally that focused on that element of it was really that it's the perception of it is a real one-size-fits-all kind of implementation approach. So I'm glad to see that was on there. I would say that that's probably up there as a number 1 or number 2 as far as parent concerns. If you kind of see what is emerging as a parent theme coming out of not just last night's event, but also, there's been lots in the news media related to this issue nationally even. So, but again, congratulations, 200 people coming out after the first 3 weeks of school where you're out every night at open houses and meet the coaches and all those kind of things. That's a big accomplishment, so good for you.
I did want to bring up, I did go to the homecoming football game, and it was great, but the one thing we want to talk about is that I was appalled. I don't have a high schooler at Bethlehem, so I didn't know about the tradition of egging and silly string in the high school on the Friday, and I don't think it's funny. I think it's appalling. I think it's a black mark on the students of Bethlehem that they're doing that. And I know you asked Scott Landry if you wanted to speak about that at all.
Scott, if you could give us sort of a brief synopsis of what occurred on, I believe it's the Friday, it wasn't before that.
Yeah, leading up,
But also any other issues that you addressed or how you're addressing, or how it will be addressed in the future.
leading up to our homecoming football game is Spirit Week, and every day there's a different theme. The newest one this year was America Day on Wednesday. But then Friday was really that's the big day. We have a modified schedule, and there's the pep rally at the end of the day. And a couple of the good things, we'll do it chronologically. Every year since we started doing the pep rally, when Friday comes around, they usually start Thursday afternoon. I equate it to a international soccer game because the rumors abound of urine-filled bags, batteries, eggs, and we've never had a major issue with that. Have we had eggs thrown? We've had a couple here and there, but we've never had a major issue with that. And I think Mr. Abb and I, the last couple of years, worked really hard to get the pep rally to more of a school spirit as opposed to the freshman fill in the blank, which started to take over the pep rally. But we've also added a couple things, and last year was the first year we had the hooligans play in the glass quarter. And I will be honest, it was one of those decisions. In my first year, I was thinking, okay, and I also approved Mr. Bethlehem, and that went off incredibly well. Well, last year's hooligans playing in the glass corridor, students loved it, the faculty loved it, it went off without a hitch. So I approved that again this year, and again, it met with rave reviews. But this year, there was a little hiccup in the mix. It was the first time ever that, and I'm glad there's a bunch of students in here because they could attest, you could probably ask them, I've ever had to put my angry eyes and angry voice on the PA. For whatever reason, and it's the first time I've ever seen it since I've been here, prior to homeroom starting, this place was a mess. And there was silly string everywhere, and there were eggs everywhere. They weren't targeted toward anybody individually. It was just they were on the walls, they were on the floor, the silly string was everywhere. And this place was a mess. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat it. And I got on the PA, and trying not to get too angry, I told them, I said, look, we're better than this. If it continues, I will cancel the pep rally. And kudos to the custodial staff we have here, and the teachers as well, and the students. This place was spotless by the end of first period. And the amazing thing, and Mrs. Coleman said it too, because she, this is only her second year here. Even after that, 8:15, you walked through these halls and you looked in the classrooms, it was not out of control. I won't do the teachers teach, students learn thing, but that's what was going on here. And it was really good to see that the building had immediately settled down and got back to business. Fourth period, there were 2 stairwells that had some silly string on them. I felt it was a really good opportunity to reiterate to the student body that, look, we need to get through this day and do it the right way. And honestly, all the way up to the pep rally and all the way through the pep rally, the kids were perfect. When it ended, and yes, I will put my angry eyes on it again a little bit, there was a bunch of silly string in the gymnasium. Again, not targeted toward anybody, it was all over. The impressive thing was how many students stayed after to help clean up without me asking. coaches, teachers. I could name a few. A.G. Irons was actually pushing a broom upstairs in the hallway while helping with the kids. There were just examples of that all over. The girls' volleyball team. The pep rally itself was probably one of the best reviewed ones. We have seemed to have gotten the tradition of dancing, although that is going to be revisited again. It was done in a very tasteful manner, and it was more about school spirit and the sports themselves. And we had no issues at the football game. It was very well attended. And at the dance the following night, which was not as well attended, but that was due to Pearl Palooza, or so the students say, we didn't have any issues with that again. And again, the thing that I was really most proud of with Friday, that could have gone south very, very quickly. And the students responded the way that I would hope that they would, and they did. And I was very proud of them, and I was very proud of the people in this building for what they did to make it work. Are we going to look at how that pep rally is run next year? We do every year. But it is something I think is very important to the student body, I think to the faculty, to this community. And we have to tighten some things up, yes, but I also don't want to take the fun out of it. We have to let students be students, but as long as they do the right thing.
Well, I appreciate that it settled right down, and congratulations to you for getting it that way. But, I mean, I think one of the things that concerned me, and I got many earfuls over the weekend from friends and neighbors who have high school kids, and heard the first-person account from my 2 high school kids. And I would say up until homeroom, it sounded like it was mayhem. And while folks, and you characterized it as weren't individually targeted, I think there were individual kids targeted who were freshmen, and it sounded like from the accounts that I heard, again, from individuals who were there firsthand and saw kids get hit by, one of my neighbors told me her daughter was with a friend who got hit in the head with a silly string can. Another kid I heard got egged and had to deal with that. But it did prompt a big family discussion about what hazing is, and I described hazing to my kids as organized bullying, which I think is a pretty good definition for it. I share Caitlin's outrage and disgust for targeting of freshmen who are very much in a transition mode of trying to figure out their place in the high school, and I know that's tough. But to the extent that we can do a better job next year of the pre-homeroom time period, I think we have to do that. I did hear from neighbors and friends who said their kids were afraid to go to school on Friday, who were freshmen. And again, they're, they're getting their sea legs here, and they're trying to figure out how they get around without looking at a map or asking anybody so they look silly, and that, people know that they're freshmen. And to the extent, and I'm glad we have students here tonight, because, from a governance perspective, one kid getting hit by an egg is too many. And I hope that you as leaders out there can figure out a way to send a really strong message to your peer group that it's not okay, it's organized bullying. And if we're okay with that as a district and as a student leadership group, then have at it. But my assumption is that we're not, and we can do way better than we did, even though it was held, the mayhem was held to a minimum up until homeroom. A lot of people out in the community were really, really, really concerned about it.
Mm-hmm. I will say this in terms of, because that's that part of it, that would change the whole dynamic and the whole perspective. And when my administrative team and the hall monitors and the teachers, in terms of our investigation of that, We did have a number of students that were individually targeted, but it had nothing to do with class. One of them actually was a sophomore, but there was a story behind it. It was a personal story behind the targeting, and the mayhem was an avenue to use this. This will come out sounding wrong, but I was almost relieved in that the mayhem was all over this place, including in the senior hallway, the junior hallway, the sophomore hallway. It was not a mad dash of we're going to run down to the freshman wing and have at. As a matter of fact, one of the reports from one of the teachers who goes in between buildings was it seemed as though the freshmen were the noisiest and the craziest of the bunch, but that everybody was. And you're right, it's one person getting hit with an egg is inexcusable, and it's much like one person being drunk at a dance is inexcusable, and we have eliminated that problem. And my goal is that, and you're right, a lot of it falls on the leadership of the students, that if we're going to continue to have celebrations like that, they need to have the maturity to handle that. And we'll look at that. I'm going to work with Student Senate. We already have, in many ways, that they've come to me, and that was partly why some of the things went on in the pep rally, because they said, look, we don't want to be punished for what happened last year. And they did a really good job of doing the right thing during the pep rally. But yeah, that homeroom thing, absolutely. That has to get under control, and we can't have that again.
I did hear the pep rally was fantastic, so good for you. It sounded like the freshmen really enjoyed it,
Good.
most of all.
That's good to hear.
And you can control it, and you can punish it, but only the students can stop it. And
You're right.
and I think they need to take that initiative.
Yep. And that's why, honestly, because it wasn't me getting on the PA that stopped them. It was them doing the right thing after hearing me on the PA. Absolutely.
Anyone else have questions for Scott?
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you.
A couple of quick things. I will not be at the October 16th Board of Ed meeting, just to let the board know and the community know, because of a significant family engagement. And it was wonderful to go back to Ellesmere to see everyone, even though my children, they did attend Ellesmere, they have moved off of Ellesmere, and my involvement at Ellesmere has, because I'm on the board and because my kids are no longer there, has obviously taken steps back, but it was wonderful to revisit it and celebrate with them. I did go to a boys varsity soccer game, I think it was last Tuesday, and was amazed at how well the students conducted themselves. I only stayed for the first half. It was a 1-1 game. I believe they won 5-1 eventually, but it was a tight game. And in the one or two instances where the students began to heckle the refs because of the intensity of the game, it was immediately curbed. So the students conducted themselves well. I also went to the community piece before the football game, and everyone seemed to be having a great time. So the foundation deserves a congratulations for that, and the community as well for conducting themselves so well. Oh, one other thing. I'd love to have a tour with Paul Franchini sometime, once things settle down. I'm not sure if other board members are interested, but I'd love to see how things are going here. Perhaps the middle school and maybe 1 or 2 select elementary schools, but I'm not sure if that's something other board members be interested in.
One of the things the board had decided that they will be picking a date for all board members to do, but we will make that as part of it as well.
Sure.
Because our first meeting of the Food Service Committee will be the first week in November. That way they've had time to settle in, and then they'll be doing their work and discussion. I think they'll be more full swing at that point with all the options that they have.
Great, thank you.
There is an event, Charmaine. I just got recruited to help on October 11th at the middle school, Salads for Kids Days.
Okay.
It's featuring the garden at the middle school, all the vegetables from the garden, and I'm told you'll get a real sense of, kind of what lunch is like at the middle school. So if you can help out, I'm going to be volunteering. They're
Okay.
looking for people from 10 to 12 and then 12 to 2.
Okay, great. But I'm particularly interested to see how this line thing is working. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Joanne.
Anyone else?
I just had a quick comment. I ran into somebody the other day, and they were saying that they cannot get this on the news anymore, like on that channel, public access.
Channel 18?
Yeah, and, you know, whether or not, I know some cable TV or cable visions don't have certain things, but just to maybe make sure people know that you can view it on the website,
Okay.
if that's an issue.
Sal,
Yeah.
Nick, do we know
That was
anything
the first I heard
about-
of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't.
We'll check into the
Yeah.
schedule of it as well, because
Okay.
I know I see myself every now and then
Yeah.
on Sunday at 6 to 8.
Yeah,
Well, I purposely,
8.
I purposely don't look, so I don't
I
know.
know,
but
it's awful bad watching yourself
Yeah.
do this.
Nothing like watching
Nick
yourself.
catches us in
But she
some
had
of
said
the
she used to
most
watch it all the time, and now she can't. But it could just be whatever cable company she has,
just
so.
gotta get a life.
Hmm?
She has to get a life.
Any other board members? I just have a couple things. I also would like to congratulate everybody that Tom recognized tonight, and especially Ellesmere on the wonderful recognition they're receiving. Also, good luck to all the juniors and seniors that will be taking the SAT on Saturday. Good luck with that. And lastly, I'd like to wish Fran Vincent a good triathlon. She'll be leaving to go to Kona, Hawaii, and competing on October 12th in the Ironman triathlon. So good luck, Fran. Moving on, we have two presentations tonight. First one being the Independent Auditor's Report. That will be by Judy Kehoe and Jim Cusick and Jason from Cusick and Company.
I'm going to let you take it, Judy, because I can't see the titles from here.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight, we want to give you a quick overview of the district's year-end financial results for the year ending June 30th, 2013. This is one of those times when we get the external accountability of how the district is doing, how we have followed the rules for accounting and reporting all of our transactions and assessing the district's internal controls. We are using the audit firm of Cusack and Company, and they have been doing the district's audit for 3 years now. We have two of, the partner and the manager assigned to that engagement. I'd like to introduce them. And the audit report is about 70 pages in length. They're not going to be going over that cover to cover tonight, but they are going to give you a quick overview of the audit and what the scope included. And then I'll come back up and go over a quick review of the financial results for you. At this time, I'd like to introduce Jim Cusack and Jason Mara to talk a little bit about the audit.
Thank you. Yes, we recently completed the audit of the district's financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2013. Last week, we met with the audit committee and reviewed those reports in detail, so I'll be very brief this evening. The most important thing is we've issued unqualified opinions on all your reports. That's your basic financial statements, the extra classroom activity funds, your federal programs. That's the highest level of assurance we can issue in terms of your financial statements. Basically says that the financial statements are not materially misstated. An important document to read if you want to highlight the results, and I know Judy's going to go through that tonight, the management's discussion and analysis on pages 1 through 10. It's a very important document that shows where your district stood this year as compared to last year and as compared to budget. As I said, we issue unqualified opinions. We also issue a management letter that has some minor, what I call housekeeping items, and they were very minor this year. There was one item that had a financial significance, and it was regarding the lab school program. We were suggesting that management take a look at that to see if that should fall within the district's reporting, within their control system, so claims auditing on the disbursements, receipt and deposit of the funds. We understand the program has grown over the last number of years, so that was one of our recommendations that had some financial consequence to it. The business office does a great job. They're fantastic. They do a wonderful job. They prepare for our audit. They're ready for us when we come on site. We're here a couple times a year for a number of days, number of hours, and they do a very nice job. So the results of the audit are very positive. And I think at this point, I'll let Judy continue with the financial side of it.
And just stay around And a lot of the effort that goes into the audit, I have to give a thank you to both Phyllis Albano and Martha Shea, who have spent countless hours putting together multi-volume binder sets for the auditors to review and to do their testing on. So we're always happy to see them, and we're happy when it's done as well. A lot of this will seem like old news to the board, so I am going to move through it very quickly because we had talked about our projected results for the 12-13 fiscal year as we were going through the process of developing our budget for 13-14. We were projecting that we were, in fact, going to have a surplus due to two key factors. First being the positive settlement of the teacher's contract that generated close to $750,000 in savings to the district, and then also the rerouting of the bus stops and the consolidation of the stops yielded a significantly higher amount of savings than we had projected within the budget, and that was close to $1 million. So if you take those two key items plus because we use conservative budgeting, we tend to come in under what we've budgeted for our appropriations to a small extent. So those items combined have yielded a surplus of $1.7 million for this fiscal year, bringing our total fund balance up to just under $9.3 million. Now, as you know, our fund balance is composed of many different subsections, restricted components. These various items that are listed there are all restricted by law as to the purpose of what we can use them for. Most of them are the same as the prior year, with the one addition of the employees' retirement system reserve that the board had authorized in June. We have the gray shaded area that's marked as undesignated is the key number to hone in on because that is the amount that is available for general operations of the district. And that is the number that when taken as a percentage of the subsequent year's budget, so for the $3.358 million, that is the undesignated amount as of June 30th. If you divide that by your total appropriations in the 13-14 budget, that percentage is what is required to be under 4%, and you can see that we're at 3.71%, and that's pretty close to the levels that we have been at over the last few years. Okay.
Mrs. Kehoe, could you move that microphone just slightly closer to, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Good thing I didn't wear my heels tonight, huh? This is a comparison broken out by areas as to how our actual results compared to the budgeted amounts. Our expenditures were under budget by about $3.7 million or 4.21%. And again, the largest piece of that was driven by the savings in instruction and pupil transportation. And because a lot of those savings have come from salaries, many of the fringe benefits are a percentage of salaries, so you also see some positive variance on that number as well. If you look to our actual expenditures for the prior year compared to those for the June 30th, 2013 year, you can see that our expenditures, although they did go up, it was by a very small percentage, 0.16% on the total of close to a $90 million budget, and that reflects the holding the line on the expenditures that we've been trying to do over the last few years. In prior years where we actually had reductions, we pretty much kept it flat this year, and that's because we're trying to live within the tax cap, still looking at challenges within our state aid and knowing that we need to curtail the expenditure amounts. A large portion of those expenditures are on the fringe benefits. We had a relatively nominal increase in the 12-13 fiscal year end, and a lot of that was a reflection of the control on the salary expenditures. I did include the 13-14 budget amounts, kind of the foreshadowing to our budget process going forward, because as we've discussed, our rates for the retirement systems are still a pretty significant percentage of our budget. They are going up quite a bit in this year, so you can see several million in increases just attributed to those amounts as well. Okay. But more to come on that when we start budget. On the revenue side, we were pretty much dead on with the budget for our total revenues. I would note that we were very close on our state aid. You can see we were within about $75,000 of the budget amount. And I wanted to use this opportunity as a reminder, because I know every year during budget, we have the conversation of, well, why aren't you budgeting the number that appears on the state aid runs? And those numbers are estimates, and we do need to go through and make adjustments. So based on the projections that we had done, we in fact were pretty close to where we thought it would land for the 12-13 year. Similarly, tracking how we did with our revenues in the prior year to the current year, total revenues increased about $3.1 million. As expected, the largest portion of that was from the school taxes, where we had the increase that would be in the fall 2012 tax bills, which yielded the $2.1 million in revenues. And everything else, plus or minus, was close to the same. I also wanted to include a quick overview on the school lunch fund. That is in a separate fund from the general fund, but because this has been a subject of scrutiny for us, I wanted to show our actual revenues are in fact down from the prior year. They were down about $42,000, coming in at a total of about $1.2 million. When you compare that to the expenditures, although our expenditures actually decreased by a larger amount, it still was a loss in the fund for the current year. And a lot of that was causing us to revisit the whole structure of the program and the elimination of the federal program at the high school only going into this year. We did, in fact, end the school lunch fund with a deficit as we had projected. It was about $105,000. Although we had sufficient fund balance to absorb that, clearly that rate of loss is a concern, not sustainable. And within the coming weeks, you will be getting the regular updates on how we're doing thus far, and you'll note some improved trending on those numbers going forward. So overall, the district still is in good financial condition. This is something that is very good news, because with the approval of the $20 million bond, we'll have the joy of going through the ratings process again, and this is one of the things that the ratings agencies will look at. The more favorable our rating, typically the lower our interest rate is, and of course that will affect us going forward over the life of the bonds in the future. So that is a summary of the results. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Or Jim and Jason are in reserves there if you have questions for them.
Judy, actually, do back on the slide about revenues, budget to actual. The charges for service, is that where we rent out the facilities, athletic fields, whatnot?
That includes a number of different line items. The facility rental charges is one component of that, and that also includes charges to other school districts, which does tend to fluctuate from one year to the next. So we tend to budget that based on averages, and it will vary.
Are we still renting classrooms to BOCES?
There are not in this current year, no.
So that could contribute to the part of the decrease then?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Any other board members?
I have a question on slide 8. On the fringe benefit, it looks like it went up $3 million between.
Into the budget for 13-14, yes.
Yes. Do you have any sense of what the trend might be for the coming, because you mentioned something about rolling out something as the budget goes. Will it be comparable, or do you have any sense of what that might look like?
We're starting to see a little bit of a leveling out on the ERS and TRS rates going forward. So the increases that we'll see will be driven more by the underlying increases in the salaries, but it should not be quite as dramatic as what we've seen here. And the good news is if there are fluctuations in ERS, remember we did create that reserve, so that's another tool that we have that can help control those costs.
Great, thank you.
Yes, Joanne.
Judy, I have a question on the school lunch revenue slide. I don't know what slide number. The revenue one, the next one. Oh,
No, there we go.
there we go. It says adult sales, so that's separate from like I'm thinking coffee shop, so the adult sales is outside the coffee shop?
Those are adult lunches, yes.
Okay, so those are adult lunches. So you don't know, like on the coffee shop, what portion of that breaks out to adult versus kids per student?
I do not have it broken out on here. The detail is
Somewhere.
several pages, so I
Okay.
have that and can provide that at another time.
Okay, and what is surplus food? What exactly is that?
Part of our federal aid is they make available to us food that is surplus within this federal network of surplus food, and then that is provided to the
Okay.
district. So it tends to be a variety of,
I'm sorry, I was joking about cheese, that's what we're laughing about.
It's not the hamburger.
yeah, no pink slime in Bethlehem, for the record.
Okay, thanks.
I guess I have the last one. It's more for Jim. Jim, as you look at this independent external audit function, I've been here roughly now going into 2.5 years. With that, comparing to other schools that you audit or across the state, how would you consider, in your own opinion, Bethlehem is doing in regards to its auditing processes, its financial accountability to the public?
I think very well. As I mentioned, you've got an excellent business office. They're well prepared for the audit. They're very active with us in terms of issues that arise throughout the year. In terms of finances, we see a lot of districts that are in deficit position. They haven't had the ability to establish needed reserves. So I feel that the fact that you're able to establish reserves and tap into them when you need it is a very good thing. And I think a lot of districts throughout the state aren't able to do that at this point.
And in regards to your one finding, it's your opinion that we should look at, I believe you said,
Yep.
the lab school, in trying to make sure that in light of the comptroller possibly coming in, it would be better to understand that fund?
Well, yeah, and investigate. I think there's funds that are being raised for the benefit of the school that we would think should be accounted for within the school's operations. And we don't know the size of that either. That's why I said we don't know financially. It may have a financial impact. We don't think it's substantial enough that it would cause the financial statements to be materially misstated, but we think it's something that should be looked into.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Right.
They gave me homework when they left.
No, I think it's great that, unqualified audit is certainly words that any board or district wants to hear, and I think it's great that the department has done such a great job, as has everyone in the whole budgeting process.
And we're trying to build for our future, too, so.
Thank you to the audit committee, because I know that's a lot of work and a lot of numbers, so.
They had to read every single page in the audit report.
We asked a lot of these questions already.
All right,
Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Jim and Jason. Okay, next presentation is by Jody Monroe on our school report cards.
You can take over from over there.
Good evening, everyone. Where'd my oh, there we go. First and foremost, I'd like to thank all of the supervisors and administrators who are here this evening. As Ms. Lenhart noted, they were also out last night for our Common Core presentation. I appreciate them being here for this report tonight. So I'm going to try not inundate us with, there's a lot of numbers tonight, and Ms. Kehoe already, got us going with that, so I'll try and make it a little more exciting. But essentially, Bethlehem has always had adequate yearly progress, which is what the state designates as schools in good standing. So that means that we've met adequate yearly progress on all our exams and assessments. And really the biggest issue we face this year, once again, as we have often many years, is the ELA and math results in 3 through 8. So what I have here is our proficiency level. Proficiency, remember, is levels 3 and 4. Those tests are scaled 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can see that 50%, I'll get into comparisons from prior years, but this shows how all of our students did in 3 through 8 for ELA, and breaks up those numbers out into general ed and special ed as well. And again, these were the first year the assessments were aligned to the Common Core curriculum. And what this chart shows is how we compare to the New York State average. And while the 50% looks quite honestly pathetic, for that 50% of our students would be proficient. If you look at how we compare across the state, we're still about 25 to 30% above the state average in all of those grade levels.
And this is the new benchmark that we're talking about in the reform agenda.
Correct, the new benchmarks. In math, again, the numbers are very similar. We're around 50%, 55%, which is a little bit of a shift because in the past, our math results have traditionally been a little bit higher. The other shift we saw this year is that our elementary performance in the past had been traditionally a little higher than middle level results, and that did not hold true with the new scales that were established. And again, you can see in math that again, we still, although the results are a little bit abysmal, in comparison to how we compare to the rest of the state, we're still statistically about where we were in the past in proficiency. And you can see this goes back to 2009-10. If you recall, then the state changed all the scoring on the 3 through 8 assessments after the fact, and all of our results dropped significantly. Then, we made some improvements in the 10-11 and 11-12, and now 12-13, they really shot back down again. So we've been on this kind of, up and down roller coaster with the 3 through 8 assessments over the last several years. And this just shows you general education, again, similar trends in comparison to all students. And our special ed results are very similar. They went down and then they remain relatively stable, which I spoke a little bit about last year. And you can see this year they are not looking too great as well. Similar trends in math. And the same for general ed and special ed. If we get into our high school results, these seem to stay a little bit more stable, although I want to mention that this coming year is the first year that the Common Core Regents exam will be administered at the high school level. So right now we offer Geometry, Integrated Algebra, and Algebra 2 Trig as the Regents assessments. For this year, all 9th graders are required to take the Common Core Algebra exam, and that will actually be administered the beginning of June. However, the integrated algebra exam, the traditional one, will still be offered, and students can take both of those exams, and they're allowed to take the higher score. Initially, we thought that those students are being instructed in Common Core this year. We thought that we would just have them take the Common Core. Any students who perhaps did not do well suggest they then take the integrated algebra exam. The problem is that the state won't have our results for the Common Core algebra exam back in time prior to the integrated algebra. So our recommendation for 9th graders is that they take both of those exams this year because it will benefit them to have the higher grade on their transcripts. For the middle school students who are taking those exams, we are only recommending they take Common Core because they also still have to take the Math 8 exam. So if we had them take integrated algebra, they would have to take 3 state assessments. But our results have been very consistent over the last few years in proficiency levels and also in passing rate, which is 65 and above. Our science assessments, we still have the science exams in 4 through 8. Again, those remain relatively stable. The state has not changed those assessments in quite a few years, although there is some there's a question as to whether the science standards are going to change and whether or not that will impact these assessments, but that hasn't moved too far over the last year or two. And again, our science regents results, none of these assessments are changing, at least as of today. So I'm serious when I say that. But you can see our results have been relatively stable. We have most of our students are passing. And if they're not passing in the end of the school year, many of them do retake the exams in August and get the credits that they need for graduation. Social studies, there is some discussion about new social studies standards as well. But at this point, they've talked about having a 9th grade, 10th grade exam. Global Studies, remember, is a 2-year course. But again, that's kind of been stalled at this point. So as far as we know, these exams will remain the same, at least for the immediate future. Again, our results are outstanding, well above the state average for passing and mastery. If you remember a few years ago, the state, because of funding, dropped the Regents exams in world languages. And so what that means, however, is that they didn't take the requirement out of the graduation that students have to take the course and pass what's the equivalent of a Regents exam. So all of these exams are actually locally developed, although I know Dr. Bell and her department works with other local schools to make sure that the tests are equivalent to the Regents exams. We did add Chinese, which is a newer exam, so we didn't have that when you see the NA. We didn't actually have the Regents exam in Chinese the last few years. But you can see our results for passing are quite high, and very few students do not perform well in world language exams. English, this is going to change, we know that. This year's 9th graders will be are instructed in Common Core English. However, this year's current juniors will still take the comprehensive Regents exam. So the first group of students to take the Common Core Regents exams will be this year's current 9th graders. The comprehensive Regents exam in English will still be offered for 2 more years. And I should just mention that for those scorings for algebra and Regents, right now those tests will be scored on a 1 to 4 point scale, similar to the 3 through 8 assessments. So we're a little up in the air as to how we get those into a percentage if we're using those as final exam grades. So yet to be determined. In our AP summary results, this chart shows you the number of students who actually took the exams, and you can see from 10, 11, 11, 12, 12, 13, we've had significant numbers of students increase participation in AP courses. However, our averages within most of those have remained relatively stable. So there was an emphasis a few years ago to allow more students to participate or encourage more students to take these exams because they often get college credit, and we've seen a pretty good increase in the number of students enrolled in these courses. And this is the next part of the AP exams. No, I took those off. We do, one thing I should mention is that from year to year, there may be an AP course that isn't offered because students don't sign up for it. So there's other AP offerings that we do have from year to year, but they don't always run. So they're not included on this slide. But here you can see the number of students who are taking AP exams. This has the total number of students and also the number of exams. So you can see we've had a pretty good increase over the last several years. Generally, the reason we have the AP students with scores of 3+ is that many of the colleges consider a 3 or higher the awarding of college credit, so they don't have to take those same courses in college. Of course, that all depends on the college and the program they're enrolled in. And this kind of shows you the number of AP exams and more college credits. For example, U of Albany pretty much allows a score of 3 or better, and the student will actually earn 6 credits in their college program. Again, contingent upon school and program they're enrolled in. And our graduation rates have remained relatively stable. When you see the school report card, sometimes it's not totally accurate because they don't actually account for some of the August graduates. But what we do is we go through, and Mr. Landry does, and Mr. Abba had done prior, identifying the students who don't graduate within that 4 years and following up to see if they actually get those credits and earn their diploma in August or even sometimes the following January. And the other information on here provides you with, we had a large graduating class last year. These are the diplomas that they earned in the breakdown and what their designations were. Questions?
question, but I think we need to emphasize the fact that, you know, those scores this year on the 3 through 8 tests are really a baseline. The newspapers always talk about failing and, you know, and, you know, no one has failed. It's just that the testing was on material that many of the students hadn't mastered yet because we just initiated the Common Core. So I just think it's important that it's always out there. I hate to think of parents, you know, being upset that their students, their children are failing when, you know, when they really aren't.
Right.
And this is a baseline, and assumedly, they
They'll
will
go up. Yeah. Although it's hard because we've used 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 and 4 being proficient or passing, and they're still using those same scales, so the majority of people look at it that way. And so that's a hard thing to get past. And now going with the algebra and English exams in high school, they're going to be doing those on a 1, 2, 3, 4 scale. And my understanding is that they'll have one scale for college and career readiness, which will be that 1 through 4 scaled score, and they'll have another scale for what's considered passing for graduation requirements. So.
Yeah, I think it's also, building on what you said, Lynn, is important to use exactly what the commissioner said when the assessments were first ruled out. And the commissioner made it very clear to the public that the assessments, although they look as if they have gone down, do not indicate that our children, our students, have done any differently than they did the year before. It's just that we are using a new scale to show the data. So although the benchmark is lower, the students roughly performed at the same levels that they were performing at the year before, except we're looking at it a new way. So, you know, I would take heart into what the commissioner said and also hold them to it. Our students are very successful. However, this is our new benchmark, and as time has always shown in education, from the benchmark we rise. And I think that's what his hope is. Other commissioners across the time between Sobel, Mills have done the same resetting of the benchmark has occurred, and that's what's happened here.
Also, last night, a parent asked about academic intervention services. And of course, you know, the levels would kind of indicate that a lot more students might require it.
Sure.
And I guess realizing that that's probably not possible, we certainly didn't budget for it, I guess I just want to be sure that all the students that normally probably would have needed it, that they are getting it this year.
Well, at the elementary school, we've implemented response to intervention. So that's a different type of format than AIS traditionally has been. And we're not only using these assessments, but also the Ames Web benchmarks that in reading and math, and also the Fountas and Pinnell guided reading. We also have interim math assessments. So we're using more than just this as a measure for which students need intervention. At the middle school, we also have the Scholastic reading and math inventories we're using this year, which provide a benchmark with national norms. So these tests certainly can help us flag students, which there's a conversion chart. So you're looking at a lower level, even though you might be a 2, you may not actually be qualified for AIS under that conversion chart. Then looking at the other assessment data to determine what kind of services that student needs. You know, using just one assessment, student could have a bad day, they don't test well. You have to look at all of that to determine which students need the services, and we, you know, that's what we've always done, and that's what we'll continue to do, to make sure the students get the support they need.
Thank you.
I have a question I was going to ask about the AIS. Thank you, Lynn, for asking that. It might be more from Mrs. Johnson. Given the special ed results on the test, could you maybe tell the board and the public anything in particular your staff is working on to assist students who may have scored poorly?
I think the, shorter here, probably the most important thing for everybody to remember is that these are the levels 3s and 4s. The state is expecting that our special education students are going to score exactly as the regular ed students would score. And, you know, there really is not a lot of fairness to that. But what we ended up doing, I will talk in a second about what we're planning on doing or starting to do this year, but really went back and looked, because as you saw the numbers in special ed, they look, pretty low. And it was pretty frightening to look at those initially. Looked like our guys had done significantly worse. But we went back and we looked at the 11-12 and the 12-13 scores, how the general ed population decreased. And then we did the exact same thing for our special ed students. And the decreases were very, very consistent with the regular ed kids and the special ed kids. So what I mean by that is, for example, in the third grade ELA, the percentage of the drop from 11-12 to 12-13 was 27%. In special ed, it went from 36 to 13, which was a 23% drop. And it was consistent 3 through 8. So while the numbers are lower, and it looks like we did significantly worse, we actually did not. Bottom line is that for kids with special ed needs, you're talking about kids with learning issues, language issues, all sorts of things. We really have to work collectively, as we are doing, with making sure our special education staff is working with the gen ed staff on all of the Common Core things, looking at how the assessments are done, looking at the modifications that students might need for these assessments. We've worked very closely on a lot of the RTI information, the reading programs, the Ames Web. We're introducing a Lexia program to help a lot of our students with reading. So technology is a big part of what we're doing in special ed also. So there's quite a bit that we are doing to help improve our students' scores.
Great, thank you.
In these, when you differentiate special ed, what makes it special? Is it they
Is
have
this
an IEP?
a student identified with an
Anybody who
IEP?
has an IEP, right? 504 doesn't count.
No.
You don't have to be in a skills class. You
No,
just
no,
have to
no,
have
no.
an IEP.
No, you could, anybody who is identified
Is
and
on
having
your
an IEP.
statistics though.
Correct.
So what percentage of your special ed kids are actually at grade level?
At grade level?
I mean, to me, that's helpful, because if you have 13% passing, and you have 13% at grade level, that's great. I mean, that's good. So to me, it depends. If you have a 10-year-old with the mental capacity of a 4-year-old, they're not going to pass a 5th grade test. If you have a 10-year-old doing 5th grade skills with, assistance, I would want that, I would hope you're getting that child to, I mean, you really have to look at it individually. But just
Absolutely.
statistically, do you have an idea what percentage of the kids are at, because they have to take their grade level test. So do you have any idea that way, just off the top of your head, the percentage that are at grade level?
I can get that for you, Kate. I don't have, I mean, a lot of our kids did, do fairly well. I have kids, remember, that are kids that are getting just related services that have IEPs.
Right.
That are at grade level. There are students that their issues are more anxiety related, and given the accommodations, they're doing fine.
Right.
But I didn't pull it out that way, but I'd be happy
To
to
me,
get
it
it
just,
for you
it
guys.
helps me with the numbers, because I don't think they're as bad as they look either, at all, and that's the way that I kind of tease it out when I'm looking at it, that way.
Yeah, I'd be happy to get that information for you.
I think one of the difficult things to say, building upon that, Kate, is you're very true on that end, but it's also looking for our community at the other end of that spectrum. That's probably the most disheartening piece of this reform agenda, is because we have students that may not be able to get to that level, and we're forced to make them get to that level, or else say that they're a failure. My years in education, no child is a failure. They just have a different pace. And that's one of the things hopefully we can send as a message. I know the administrators and faculty, as well as the parents, would greatly appreciate that there would be some understanding at the regents level for this in the reform agenda, because I'd love to say, as a superintendent, every student goes to college. And this isn't even about special needs versus general needs. What it is not every student is going to go to college, but they should have the opportunity if they so desire. And they should also have the preparation that if they so desire not to, that they become a contributing member to our society in whatever path they choose. But yeah, that's the hard part I think we struggle with, and these numbers don't necessarily discuss.
Jody, could you also, when you do presentations in the future, say the number of students that got a 5 on the AP? I'd like to see the number that are actually really achieving the highest level in that class.
That is also something that the board should know, that we've convened a committee of teachers and administrators, as well as Jody and myself, to look at some of the advancements also from the AP program to the International Baccalaureate program. So you'll be hearing about that in the future, as the two programs are competitive to each other, but they are entirely different in their format, so.
Jody, I just had a question. In the past, when you would show the slides of where we compare, and you had it for New York State, do you have a slide, or can we get one of how we compare to the suburban council or the schools around?
Oh, sure,
just our
similar
area?
districts. Yeah, I have that information.
Yeah.
I can get that for you.
Okay, thanks.
Jody, thank you for the presentation. Just on the graduation rate, what do we do to try to get to that 4%? I mean, it sounds like a real small number, but it's 1 in 25 kids will not graduate who are freshmen now if the statistic stands up.
Right. Well, some of those students do go on to get a GED, but they're considered non-completers, at least for graduation requirements. Students who get an IEP are actually considered non-completers. So some of those students, even though they've done something, they're not credited, you know, for, right, unless it's, well, even IEPs don't. Sure, and then the 4-year piece is a component of that. So we do follow up on all of those students. I mean, we do have some students, not many, but who do drop out. But we have many students who go on and finish their requirements in August during summer school, or they come back and they may perhaps finish that up through January and they complete mid-year. So some of those students, we end up, they do finish with us, but they may not have finished yet. So they're not counted in that 12, 13, because if they're coming back here this year, they're still enrolled here, so they actually are not considered graduates yet.
Oh, I thought you had mentioned you made an adjustment for some of those types of things.
In the prior year information, if you look at the school report card, there's a discrepancy in these numbers in prior years.
Okay, but not for 12, 13,
no.
you haven't yet? Okay.
Correct.
Not yet. If I'm correct, and Mr. Landy, correct me if I'm wrong, roughly on this cohort group, so many went in August, but so many are also coming over around, I think, roughly 2% of that class would be going into this year. I think roughly about 1% opted and went for a GED that will never be counted as graduates, even though they get a graduation diploma from the state of New York, and then about 1% is our dropout percentage that you're trying to address in the future.
Right, and I would say, you know, it kind of goes to that egg thing. One student not graduating is one too many. I have a running list. We usually really aggressively start after the midterms because that's when we know those students most at risk in terms of the immediate graduation. But I can also say I have yet to see a name in my 10 years here, either as assistant principal or principal, a name that comes as a complete surprise not graduating, in terms of that there have been multiple interventions along the way, because we stretch as far as we can to try and get everybody across that line, and some, it may take a little longer. We've had some that it's been a year and a half past, but they come, but there's others. I also can say that there's been, I think, more support from parents with a couple of students now that there's some options in regards to the GED that are a little more favorable going over to Hudson Valley, that they could transfer right into the college program after they finish there. So there's more of a sense of accomplishment. But I can rest assured that we do everything that we can. And as I said again, there haven't been any surprises.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one last question. Is this information available on our website? Or I saw numerous students taking notes, so if it make it any easier, this information will be up on our
It'll be posted on the website.
So.
Anyone else? Thank you, Jody. At this time, are there any visitors that would like to address the board on an agenda item? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on. Item number 8, Finance. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following finance action items A through E.
So moved.
Second.
That's a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries. Item number 9, Professional Personnel. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following instructional staff action items A through I.
So moved.
That's a first and a second. I would like to note that the item F is effective 9/30/2013 for Judy. Any other discussion?
I think it's great that physics professor that volunteered.
Cheers, yeah.
I think that's fabulous.
He does that.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries. Item number 10, Support Personnel. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following support staff action items A through I.
So moved.
That's a first.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries. Item number 11, Correspondence for Action. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following correspondence action item A through C.
So moved.
That's a first. Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries. Item number 12. Is there any visitor that would like to speak to or address the board on a non-agenda item? None of you PIG students have any questions for us or anything?
You can say anything.
You just want to get out of here, right? All right. Future meetings, there's a meeting, our next meeting will be October 16th, 7 PM here again. Wednesday, November 6th, also here, and then Wednesday, November 20th, also here. There is no need to go into an executive session. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Just a second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? We are adjourned. PIG students, you need to come up and sign out.